Thank you, President Garvey, and thank you, sir, for joining us here at the law school for this important event in the midst of a busy and important weekend for the entire university. First, I'd like to say, if you'd like, please stand in place and stretch your legs a little bit. We've been sitting a while. If nobody wants to do that, I'll proceed. But we've had such great talks. I don't want mine to, be the one that does you in. But thank you all for coming. It's great to be with you today. I'm thrilled to be the new dean of the Columbus School of Law. It's such an exciting time in the history of the law school. Our enrollment is rising again, as are the credentials of our incoming students and bar passage rates. Although, say a little prayer, some of the results will come out in the next couple of weeks for the last class. We're hiring faculty for the first time in a decade. We've launched a coordinated fundraising campaign unlike any other in the history of the law school or the university. We're aiming to endow faculty chairs, support faculty research, enhance our academic reputation, even update and redesign some of the space in this beautiful building you built, all while still providing students with some of the best classroom and clinical experiences available. We're regaining a sense of ourselves after a difficult period. We have big plans. It's hard to imagine our current optimism and this growing confidence in ourselves as a school without the hard work of everyone who has gone before, including many of you here today. Not just those who designed and built and paid for this building, of course, but those who did do that played no small part in our current outlook, because this building both represents and serves our school so well. I think in this postmodern age, we've lost touch a bit with the nature and value of institutions generally, and that we have to keep in mind that an institution is really an idea binding together a concrete form. That concrete form stretching not just through space, but through time. Or maybe an institution is a force, connecting ideas and values and people and buildings and generations together. In any event, I think it's important to take the nature and values of an institution into account when we are deciding what to do with it next. This is doubly important when that institution is a school, helping to shape the next generation. It's perhaps trebly important when it's a law school, helping to shape the next generation of lawyers, who, at least in these days, have an outsized impact on our society. A new dean has to remember that we're not starting from scratch here. When people asked me during the dean search what my plans were for the school, I knew I needed to tell them some. Otherwise, I could hardly expect to get the job. But first, I acknowledged that in so doing, I felt a little bit like I was barging into their family room, grabbing the remote from their hands and changing the channel. Of course, it's more complex than that. For an institution such as this one to endure, indeed for it to continue to improve and flourish, it needs to have a sure sense of itself, so that it can preserve the good things of the past, address the pressing needs of the present, and make the adjustments necessary to face the future. So what is the idea of our law school? What are its nature and values? Well, I've taken for my first motto as dean, because I can, my first motto for the school, the phrase, serve and flourish. Let me tell you why. Our profession is hurting, the legal profession. It has high rates of dissatisfaction, depression, substance abuse, and suicide. But secular science is proving that our Catholic tradition can help. How? It's showing that positive emotion, engagement in work, good relationships, meaning in life, something bigger than ourselves, and accomplishment, achieved through emphasizing character strengths, many of which we might call virtues, lead to human fulfillment, human flourishing. Our school, I'm well aware, has understood its identity and mission for some time in terms of service. That's clearly a good thing. The faculty and staff are here to serve the students and to teach the students to serve others. That's certainly consistent with our Catholic identity and mission, and our alumni demonstrate how successful this has been. So service seems an appropriate and important part of any motto for our school. But service also ennobles the server. It's fulfilling. Maybe not always a happy endeavor in some immediate sense. In fact, it's often quite difficult. It can lead to happiness. And so by serving our students, by teaching them to serve, we start down the path to human flourishing ourselves. And we give our students a tool redounding to the benefit not only of the people they help, but also to themselves. And that's very important. Not a selfish thing, not selfish in a bad way. In fact, by flourishing ourselves, by flourishing themselves, our graduates can better fulfill their professional responsibility as lawyers who serve others and to serve them well. And in keeping with this model of human flourishing, the relationships forged in our community are our greatest strength. Everyone I've met who's connected with the school, whether they went here or not, has talked about the warm, generous, caring sense of community that people experience here. Between faculty and students, between staff and students, even among the students, who in a real sense are competing against one another while they're here. Even people who disagree about important issues are civil to one another, a quality our society desperately needs and our graduates can help supply. I've experienced this deep sense of community myself, recognized it from the start. It's a big reason why I'm here. So I think that everyone at our school, from every background, from every tradition, people of different faiths or of no faith, can embrace the motto, serve and flourish. At least I hope they can. But I do want to ask a question. Doesn't every law school sort of talk about itself in that way, much the same way? It's not a bad thing, but in terms of service being good both for its students and for its community, the profession itself even sees itself that way. So what do we add, if anything? What makes Catholic law any different? Today, legal education is very much oriented toward practice. Many people have told me that my coming from practice reassures them that we will continue to excel in that dimension. Indeed, we will. I understand and appreciate that. We will not take our eyes off the ball in preparing our students for practice and helping them get jobs. We've got some great old and new programs to do just that, such as a communications law program started by Professor Harvey Zuckman, now part of our Law and Technology Institute, such as our corporate compliance initiative, which graduated its first 4 certificate earners last spring and is building steam with the sign-ups from the new students. But I don't think that's all we can do or all that we should strive to do for our students. And not just for our students, but for society. And yes, for the church. It's not an either-or proposition. If our goal were simply to produce technically competent lawyers and get them jobs, I think many of us would rightly question why the National Catholic University should bother to have a law school at all. Just a few years ago, we were in crisis mode. Law jobs disappeared, applications and enrollments dropped, and we had to focus our attention more directly on helping students pass the bar. And the people here did good work to nail that down. Really good work. A bunch of great lawyers got together and figured it out. I think we now have an opportunity not to neglect doing that, but also to do more. And on a day when we're remembering our history and bringing about this building, we can mine our history a bit to help point us in the right direction. A direction, I hope, can help us keep a sense of ourselves as an institution, and a good and beautiful one at that. So going back to the beginning, William Callahan Robinson was our first dean. His portrait hangs in my conference room. He grew up Methodist, as I did, and as an adult he became an Episcopalian, as I did. Although he even went on to divinity school and became a priest in that tradition. But Robinson experienced a conversion to the Catholic Church as a mature adult, as I did, and he couldn't be a Catholic priest. He gave up his career and became a lawyer and was a Yale guy, as I am. In fact, he and a couple of others really saved and revived Yale Law School in the latter part of the 19th century. So I've doubly benefited in following after William Callahan Robinson. As I had done, he left his established position to serve the Catholic Church's National University. In his case, to start here a School of Social Sciences, which would include departments of sociology, economics, political science, and law. He really was interested in law. And as I could not possibly be, Robinson was the author of the leading treatise on patent law. I'm not an intellectual property lawyer, but I'm told that his work in the area, by the way, that's most closely associated with innovation is still important today, well more than a century later. He wrote several other influential works, and his intellectual approach was to reason from first principles, bedrock premises of natural right and justice, from which reason and experience could work out the nuances of law and its application. One modern scholar said of him, Robinson was a committed Catholic whose thinking shows deep influence from the essentially Aristotelian metaphysics developed by the medieval scholastics, and that his intellectual system, perhaps despite that, continues to influence patent law today. Robinson thought his work at Catholic University would be temporary. He started it when he was 62 and labored 16 years at our school until his death in 1911. At the end of his first year of work here, he wrote a friend. In some of the departments, eminent professors are drawing large salaries and have no students. In other departments, like my own, we have a fair number of students and are fearfully short-handed for teachers. There are but 4 teachers, and yet we cover the full curriculum work of a good law school. This means that instead of giving 5 hours a week, as I had agreed to do, I am here all day, every day, except Saturday and Sunday, besides 2 evenings a week. Now, if I'd known the work that lay before me, and the roasting climate, and the half-civilized condition of the whole region, I do not think I should have embraced the cross which coming here in any event involved with so much submissiveness. But here I am, and like the pilot of a ship on the lee shore in a gale of wind, I cannot abandon my job till the vessel is in clear water. He did it, and those who came after added to the idea of our school. Later, as was referenced before, in the 1950s, when the school merged with the Columbus University School of Law, which had been started and supported by our friends, the Knights of Columbus, it added a practical element, as the teaching at that school was done primarily by practitioners, lawyers who practiced before the various agencies of the government here in town. Whether it's literally true or not, the merger of Robinson's school with the Knights School, I think, can be taken as a symbol that represents something that is true. Legal education needs to be both about big ideas, or at least fundamental ideas, and practical know-how. What we as a Catholic law school have to offer, in part through collaborations with other departments of our National Research University, to transmit to our students an integrated knowledge, not just a specialized one. What we have to offer is a way of thinking about what law is, where it comes from, what justifies and supports it, what it means to be a lawyer, and why a human being might want to become one, and how one should behave as a lawyer, and what that might mean for one's destiny. In other words, we can offer an education of the whole lawyer, of the human being who is studying to become one. That's why I've taken as my model for the academic program, again because I'm the dean and I can, from the phrase, from first principles to practice. We need to provide both and show our students and one another and the world how they are connected. I think that will do justice to our institutional sense of ourselves, to our school's nature and values. All of that, believe it or not, is a long way of getting around to the occasion for our gathering today. It's hard to imagine us being in the good position that we are in today without both the visionary leadership and the practical get-it-done skills of those who brought this building into being. This building is a beautiful incarnation, if you will, not only of a community that existed in a given time and place in the late 80s or early 90s, you also did really well to capture the nature and values of both the pre-existing and the future, I think, institution that belongs to us all, indeed to the church and to the world. This building is both open and cozy, stately and welcoming, beautiful and useful. We have the chapel for the nourishment of our faith on one side, the library for the training of our intellect on the other, with a beautiful atrium in between, almost as if it were the forum in which, in accordance with the mission statement of our university, faith and reason themselves can be in dialogue, as our students and faculty pour out of their classrooms and literally into the sunlight. So good work. We weathered the recent storm in part because of what you did to bring this building about. We will remember what you did for us, and it's my special duty as dean to help us to remember, to make the names on our rooms and plaques and floors representing so much effort and love, so much time, talent, and treasure, meaningful for generations to come, so that we may join with those who came before us and who will come after, in trying to live the scripture from the prophet Micah that you chose 25 years ago to adorn our new building right out here, to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. Thank you for coming, for all your support of the law school, for everything that you do for us. And now let's raise a glass to the next 25 years. To the next 25 years. Cheers.